The first thing you feel is the sandpaper rasp of your own tongue, dry, cracked, tasting of rust and salt and the faint metallic tang of desperation. Night presses down like a wet sail, heavy with fog and the distant scream of gulls that have learned to feed on the almost dead. 43 days ago the ocean spat you onto this crooked rib of coral and volcanic grit. 43 dawns since the last rainwater pooled in a cracked turtle shell and you marked the wall of your lean-to with a fingernail dipped in soot. In the darkness, every sound is amplified. The hush-hush of waves retreating across broken coral, the click-click of land crabs stalking the perimeter of your fire, the drum-drum of your heart arguing with the silence. You count the beats, 1, 2, 3 because counting is the only currency you still own. When you reach 42 you stop. The next number is the one that might not come. A single ember glows in the fire ring. One ember, one hope. You cradle the tin cup between scarred palms, rationing the last mouthful of water as if it were liquid sunrise. The moon slips from behind shredded clouds and paints the sand bone white. Your shadow stretches long and thin, a scarecrow made of shipwrecked dreams. Then the wind changes. It carries something impossible, the creak of rigging, the snap of canvas. You lift your head so fast the world tilts. Out beyond the reef, where black water meets blacker sky, a shape glides, sleek, predatory, crowned with lantern light that winks like a knowing eye. A brigantine. Black hull. Red pennant snapping like fresh blood. Your heart slams against your ribs. 30 seconds ago you would have traded your soul for a crust of bread. Now you're calculating how many strokes it takes to reach the channel through the reef, how much strength you have left to swim before the current drags you under. 43 days of starvation have made you a mathematician of despair. You fumble for the only thing that hasn't been stolen by sun or surf. A palm-sized wooden medal dangling from a frayed cord around your neck. Saint Elmo, patron of sailors, carved by a boy's pocket knife 5 years and a lifetime ago. The edges are worn soft from worry, the face almost erased by salt. You press it to your cracked lips and whisper a name you haven't dared to say aloud since the gulls first circled, Mateo. Lightning forks, silent, heatless, illuminating the ship's name painted in gold leaf across the bow, Santa Valentina. The same letters you once traced with a child's finger on a Liverpool dock while a runaway stowaway pressed this very metal into your palm. Flash cut. 5 years collapse into 3 pounding heartbeats. Alleyway behind the Red Lion Tavern, fog thick as wool. You're 17, fresh off the wind chaser, pockets jingling with your first full wages. The first mate, Griggs, has cornered a scrawny Spanish kid against a stack of beer barrels. The boy can't be more than 12, all elbows and defiance, clutching a stolen loaf like it's the Holy Grail. Griggs's belt whistles through the air. You step between them, Griggs, out of my way, Drake. You, take it from my wages. Kid's half-starved. The belt cracks across your cheek instead. Salt blood, copper taste. You shove Griggs backward. He tumbles into the harbor with a splash that sounds like destiny changing course. The boy, Mateo, presses the metal into your hand. His eyes are huge, dark, grateful beyond words. Mateo, for when the sea turns on you. Back on the sandbar, the present snaps into focus. The brigantine tacks, lanterns swinging. A figure at the rail raises a spyglass. Moonlight flashes on brass. You can't see the face but you know the stance, shoulders squared like a promise kept. Your throat closes around a laugh that comes out as a sob. The same metal that once saved a runaway boy now hangs like a key between you and the rest of your life. Behind you, the dying fire hisses as fog creeps inland. Ahead, the ship's silhouette grows larger, blacker, more certain. Somewhere in the rigging a bell tolls. 2 measured rings, pause, 1 more. A code only 2 people on the planet would recognize. The signal you and Mateo invented the night you taught him to splice rope beneath the Liverpool stars. The tide shifts. Cold water laps your boots. You stand, swaying, the last of your strength distilled into a single choice. Strike the flare clenched in your fist or trust the silhouette that might be salvation, or execution. 43 days ago you were a sailor. Tonight you are a ghost bargaining for resurrection. The wind dies. The fog thins. The brigantine's prow cuts through the reef's white teeth like a blade pulled from its sheath. On the crest of the next wave, a voice carries across the black water, clear, young, unafraid. Permission to come aboard, Elias Drake. Your fingers loosen around the flare. The metal burns warm against your skin. Behind you, the sandbar is already disappearing into memory. Ahead, the red pennant snaps once more. Invitation or warning you cannot yet tell. But you take the first step into the surf anyway because some debts are paid in salt and courage, and some rescues begin long before the first rope ladder drops. Liverpool, 1878. Winter fog rolls in off the Mersey so thick it chokes gas lamps and swallows the echo of boots on cobblestones. The air tastes of tar, gin, and the copper tang of ship's bells that never quite stop ringing even after midnight. Somewhere beyond the blind wall of mist, the windchaser rocks against the pier, her masts creaking like old men arguing with the tide. Elias Drake, 17 and still tasting the Atlantic on his tongue, steps ashore with a pocketful of silver and the swagger of a boy who thinks the world owes him a song. He's got a cut on his cheek from a snapped halyard, a new wool coat bought in Halifax, and the sort of grin that makes barmaids forget to charge for the first pint. He's also got exactly 37 minutes before the tide turns and the bosun starts counting heads. 37 minutes to spend coin, kiss a girl or change a life. He'll do all three, but only one will still matter 5 years later when starvation gnaws at him on a nameless sandbar. Behind the Red Lion Tavern, the alley narrows to the width of a man's shoulders. Steam rises from a broken drain. A single lamp flickers above a doorway where shadows pool like spilled ink. Elias is humming a sea shanty, thinking of nothing more complicated than the warmth of rum, when the belt cracks, sharp as a starting pistol. Griggs, first mate of the windchaser, has the build of a dock crane and the temperament of a kicked cur. He's cornered a boy against a stack of empty beer barrels no taller than Elias's chest. The boy, barely 12, olive-skinned, all elbows and frightened eyes, clutches a stolen loaf the way drowning men clutch driftwood. Griggs's belt whistles again. Leather kisses thin cotton, skin splits, a whimper leaks into the fog. The sound is small, almost lost beneath the clatter of a passing dray, yet it slices Elias cleaner than any cutlass. He stops humming. The silver in his pocket suddenly weighs more than anchor chain. Griggs raises the belt a third time. Elias steps between them. Enough. His voice is soft, almost conversational, the way calm seas hide sharp reefs. Griggs turns, eyes red with gin and authority. Out of my way, Drake. This rat stole ship's bread. He's hungry. Elias's hand drifts to the knife at his belt, not a threat, just a fact. Hungry's not my problem. Discipline is. The belt arcs again. It never lands. Elias catches the strap mid-swing, leather burning across his palm. One heartbeat. Two. Then he yanks. Griggs stumbles, off balance, surprise flashing across his face an instant before Elias's shoulder drives into the larger man's chest. They crash into the barrels. Griggs's head cracks wood with a sound like splitting hull planks. Silence blooms, broken only by the boy's ragged breathing. Elias tastes blood, his own where Griggs's ring caught his lip. The alley tilts, lantern light strobing across wet brick. Somewhere nearby a dog barks once, then thinks better of it. Griggs scrambles upright, fury replacing shock. You just bought yourself a berth in hell, boy. Elias wipes his mouth, shrugs. I've sailed worse. He offers a hand to the kid. Small fingers, calloused from climbing ratlins, slip into his. The boy's name is Mateo Flores. He speaks English with an accent that turns every sentence into music, and he hasn't eaten in 2 days. His mother sold her wedding ring for his passage. His father died in a copper mine collapse he never saw. The loaf in his fist is the first solid thing he's held since Bilbao. Griggs spits, promises blacklisting, broken bones, worse. Elias listens, but the words slide off him like rain off oilcloth. He's already calculating. Silver in pocket, coat on back, a single sea bag waiting aboard windchaser. None of it weighs more than the look in Mateo's eyes. Gratitude mixed with something deeper, something that tastes like loyalty. They walk 3 blocks before Elias remembers the tide. 37 minutes have become 12. He stops beneath a flickering signboard shaped like an anchor. From his coat he pulls the St. Elmo medal, palm-sized, carved from driftwood, rubbed smooth by generations of desperate fingers. His grandmother gave it to him the day he first shipped out, for when the sea forgets your name. He presses the medal into Mateo's hand. Would meet skin, both are trembling. Hold tight, Elias says. Someday you'll need it more than me. Mateo curls his fist around the carving as if it's the last candle in a storm-dark world. He doesn't thank Elias in words, the look is enough. Then he melts into the fog toward whatever nameless berth will take him westward. Elias turns back toward the pier, coat flapping like a battle flag. By sunrise the windchaser has sailed without him. Griggs's word travels faster than wind. No captain on the Mersey will hire the sailor who defied a mate. Elias spends the next month sleeping in doorways, eating scraps, carving a second St. Elmo from driftwood because the first is gone and the boy might need it more. 5 years later, on a sandbar where gulls scream and the sun burns memories into salt, Elias fingers the raw edge of that scar on his cheek and feels the phantom weight of wood against his palm. The metal is long gone, but the promise it carried, kindness circles back like tide, has followed him across oceans and shipwrecks and the slow erosion of hope. Somewhere beyond the reef, a brigantine with a red pennant cuts through the fog, and a boy-turned-captain clutches the same carving as if it's a compass pointing toward destiny. The past exhales. The future gathers wind. The sky over the coral sea curdles from bruised violet to sick green in the time it takes Elias Drake to blink once, twice, swallow the last warm drop from his tin cup. 43 days of solitary thirst have taught him that weather, like memory, can turn violent without warning. T-2 hours to landfall. He chalks the numbers on the inside of the water barrel because counting is the only power left to him. The barrel itself is a miracle, washed ashore last night, still sealed, still tasting of iron and tar. He has rationed it into thimble-sized swallows that sting like mercy. One mouthful now, one at sundown, one at dawn if dawn ever comes. Beyond that, arithmetic fails. Hope is a currency with no fixed exchange rate. Across the reef, thunder growls low in its throat. The sea, which has spent 6 weeks trying to kill him, now gathers itself for a final argument. Waves that yesterday lapped like tired dogs now rise shoulder-high, slamming coral heads into fountains of white foam. The air thickens until each breath feels like inhaling wet wool. Somewhere inside the storm's belly, a bell rings, 2 measured strokes, pause, 1 more. The same pattern Elias and Mateo invented the night they learned to splice hemp under Liverpool's fog. Impossible, he thinks. Hallucination number 23, or is it 24? He presses the heel of his hand against his eyes until sparks bloom, but the bell persists, threading through wind and surf like an accusation. T-1 hour 47 minutes. He crawls to the edge of the sandbar, knees grinding on broken shell. There, black hull breaching the curtain of rain, red pennant snapping like fresh blood. Brigantine Santa Valentina. Not a ghost, not a mirage. Real enough that the hair on his arms lifts. Real enough that his heart hammers against ribs he can count like driftwood slats. On the quarterdeck, Mateo Flores, no longer the scrawny boy with a stolen loaf, now 17 and carved lean by salt and responsibility, raises a spyglass. For a moment the lens catches the last sliver of sun, flashing Morse code across the water. I see you. Elias raises one wasted arm. The motion costs him more than hauling a mainsail in a gale. The brigantine heels hard, spray exploding over her bow as she threads the reef's teeth. Mateo is shouting something, voice ripped ragged by wind, but the words scatter before they reach shore. Behind the brigantine a second shape materializes, sleeker, crueler. White hull, black gun ports. Royal Navy cutter Hawk, the same colors that once dragged Elias through a drumhead court on trumped-up mutiny charges. Commander Hawk stands at the rail like a judge pronouncing sentence. Even at this distance Elias can feel the man's smile, thin, satisfied, final. T-1 hour 12 minutes. On the brigantine's deck, First Officer Rena Chin grips the rail until her knuckles blanch. We're outgunned, she yells over the wind. One broadside and we're matchwood. Mateo's jaw sets. Elias bled for me once. My debt sails with him. He spins the wheel hard, canvas cracks like rifle fire. The brigantine answers, carving a path straight toward the reef's narrow throat, a passage no keel has ever dared. Elias sees the maneuver and his stomach drops. Only one man alive knows that channel, and it's the man Hawk swore swung a belaying pin at his captain. Memory slams into him like cold water. The night the Windchaser ran aground, the night Hawk ordered sailors flogged for cargo gone missing, the night Elias refused to sign the falsified log. T-52 minutes. The Typhoon's edge arrives first, horizontal rain that stings like buckshot. Elias uses the last of his strength to lash the water barrel to his wrist. It will float if the sea decides to swallow the sandbar whole. Lightning forks, illuminating the reef in strobing snapshots. Coral daggers, foam fangs, and the brigantine heeling so far over her lee rail kisses the sea. Aboard Santa Valentina, Rena Chen and the crew haul lines with the synchronized desperation of dancers on a tilting stage. Below decks, cannons are run out, not for battle but for ballast. Every ounce counts when the ocean tries to stand a ship on its beam ends. Hawk's cutter gains fast, riding the storm like a predator scenting blood. From her bowsprit a voice carries, distorted by wind but unmistakably English, "Stand down. That man is wanted for mutiny." Mateo hears it, laughs once, sharp and bitter. "Tell them," he shouts to his helmsman, "we're flying the flag of mercy, not mutiny." He glances over his shoulder. The cutter's forward gun barks orange, but the shot falls short, swallowed by the building swell. T-38 minutes. Elias stands knee-deep in surf now, legs trembling, salt crust flaking from his beard like frost. The brigantine looms larger, bowsprit aimed like a spear at the narrow channel. For a heartbeat he wonders if Mateo intends to ram the sandbar, sacrifice ship and crew to save one broken sailor. Then he sees the rope. Rina Chin coils it expertly, ties a bowline the size of a man's chest, and hurls it into the wind. The line snakes across 30 feet of churning water, uncoiling like a lifeline thrown by fate itself. It lands at Elias's feet with a slap. Behind him, the first wave of the typhoon crests, a moving cliff of green water 20 feet high. It roars like cannon fire, blotting out the cutter, the brigantine, the sky itself. T-27 seconds. Elias grabs the rope. Calluses, once proud and thick, have been sanded away by 43 days. The hemp slices his palms but he holds on. The brigantine's bow lifts, surges, catches the swell. The deck races toward him, planks slick with rain, faces streaked with determination and fear. Mateo stands at the rail, one hand on the wheel, the other extended. No words now, only the silent language of brothers who once believed the world would never ask this much of them. Just as Elias's feet leave the sand, Hawk's cutter fires again. The ball whistles past the brigantine's stern, splintering the flagstaff. The red pennant flutters down, snags on the rigging, tangles around Elias's wrist like a promise refusing to break. The wave crashes. The rope snaps taut. The storm swallows the sandbar whole. And Elias Drake, half-drowned and wholly reborn, is hauled over the rail into the arms of the boy whose beating he once stopped with nothing but a rusted marlin spike and the stubborn conviction that kindness should cost something. Lightning flashes one final time, illuminating the reef where two ships and two destinies converge in the eye of a storm that will either drown them all or wash them clean. The storm does not arrive, it erupts. A single wall of water rises like the back of an angry god, blotting out stars, moon and the thin red line of dawn. On the brigantine Santa Valentina, Mateo Flores plants his boots wide on the pitching deck and feels the ship breathe beneath him. Shudder, groan, live. Every timber is a rib, every rope a sinew, the wheel is the heart he must keep beating. Hold her steady, he shouts, voice shredded by wind. Rina Chin throws her weight against the helm beside him, hair plastered to her face like black seaweed. The wheel bucks, a live thing fighting their hands, but Mateo's grip is iron wrapped in memory. The first time Elias Drake stepped between him and Griggs's belt, the first time anyone said you're worth the trouble. Across the reef, the Royal Navy cutter Hawk carves through the swell like a shark scenting blood. Commander Hawk stands on the quarterdeck, coat snapping, eyes colder than the rain. His uniform is immaculate, a blue so dark it seems to drink light. Fire across her bow, he orders, and the forward 6-pounder roars. The cannonball whistles over the brigantine's efosisly, punching a hole through the foresail. Canvas rips, the sound is the scream of a wounded gull. Elias Drake, gaunt, sun-scorched, barely able to stand, feels the wind of the shot pass his cheek. Salt stings the split in his lip, the taste is copper and déjà vu. 5 years ago Hawk's voice sentenced him to lashes for a mutiny he never plotted. Now the same voice pronounces a different verdict, dead or dragged. Lightning forks, illuminating the channel between reef and open sea, a jagged crack barely wider than the brigantine's beam. Elias sees it and understands Mateo's gamble. Thread the needle at the exact moment the storm surge lifts them, or be smashed to driftwood. His legs tremble, but the old sailor's compass in his skull still spins true. Hard A port, he bellows, voice hoarse but certain. He lunges for the wheel, shoulder slamming Mateo's. For a heartbeat their eyes lock. One man starved to sinew, the other hardened by command, then they move as one. The brigantine heels so far her lee rail kisses green water. Loose cannonballs thunder below deck like chain thunder. Hawk's cutter fires again. This ball strikes the foremast. Splinters explode, one shard slicing Elias's forearm. Blood ribbons across the wet deck, instantly diluted by rain. The pain is bright, clarifying. He remembers the alley behind the Red Lion, the belt whistling, the metal sliding into his palm. That small circle of wood has traveled farther than any sailor. Bilbao to Liverpool, Liverpool to every port west of the Azores. Now it dangles from Mateo's neck, salt-stiff cords snapping against his throat with each pitch of the deck. Brace! Rina screams. Crewmen fling themselves against lines, feet skidding. The brigantine surges forward, bowsprit spearing into the channel. Beneath them, coral fangs glow white in the strobe of lightning. One miscalculation and they'll be ripped open like a purse. On the cutter's deck, Hawk's smile is thin as a blade. "Rake her stern as she clears," he orders, voice carrying even through wind and distance. The gun crews heave, rammers thud, linstocks spit sparks. Mateo sees the muzzles train. He sees Elias's blood mixing with seawater. He sees the red pennant, now tangled around the foremast shrouds like a noose, and makes the choice that will brand him pirate or savior forever. "Helmsman, steady as she goes," he shouts. Then quieter, meant only for Elias, "Take the wheel. I'll buy us 30 seconds. He vaults onto the rail, St. Elmo metal clenched in his fist, and leaps. The deck drops away, wind howls in his ears. He lands cat-like on the forecastle, grabs the severed halyard, and swings hand over hand toward the bowsprit. Rain slashes his face, the brigantine bucks like a colt. Below, black water churns over coral heads sharp enough to gut a whale. Elias grips the wheel. The wood is slick, alive, every spoke a lifeline. His vision tunnels. No cutter, no hawk, only the channel and the next wave. He steers by instinct older than charts, feeling the ship's heart sink with his own. Behind him, Mateo reaches the bowsprit's tip. He slashes the tangled pennant free with a knife that once sliced stolen bread, then lashes the St. Elmo metal to the masthead. The carving faces the storm, defiant. At that moment the brigantine lifts, storm surge heaving her bodily over the reef's fangs. Coral screams along her keel, but she does not break. The cutter fires. The ball screams past the stern so close Elias feels the wind of its passage lift his hair. Then the brigantine is through, spat out the far side of the channel into open water, sails filling with wind like lungs after drowning. Hawk's expression cracks. For the first time in 5 years the commander hesitates. The reef that should have been an executioner now becomes a cage. The next wave strikes the cutter broadside, her bow slews toward coral. Hawk grabs the rail, shouting orders too late. The storm has turned. On the brigantine's deck, Mateo hauls himself back aboard, soaked, grinning like a madman. He and Elias grip each other's forearms, blood to blood, salt to salt. The metal flutters above them, tiny against the sky, yet larger than any flag of war. Lightning freezes the scene in stark monochrome. 2 men clinging to a wheel, a ship reborn from reef and rage, a cutter turning broadside to its own judgment. The rope Elias never released goes taut. The brigantine heels again, caught by the full force of the typhoon's heart, and rides the wave toward whatever dawn waits beyond the storm. Dawn arrives on tiptoe. First, a thin silver seam along the horizon, then gold spills like molten glass across the water, turning every crest into a mirror, every trough into a cradle. The storm has spent its fury somewhere in the night. What remains is a hush so complete Elias Drake can hear his own pulse slow to the rhythm of the brigantine's gentle roll. He stands barefoot on the quarterdeck, shirt flapping open, salt-crusted hair whipping about his face. The cut on his forearm has been stitched with sail twine. The scar will join the constellation of others across his ribs, each one a star chart of survival. Below, the crew moves with the easy quiet of people who have seen the edge of the world and decided to sail back anyway. Their voices, Spanish, English, Tagalog, and a dozen tongues born of ports, mingle like a lullaby. Mateo Flores, no longer the ragged stowaway but the lean, sun-browned captain, leans against the rail beside him. In his palm rests the St. Elmo medal, salt-whitened, edges rounded soft as prayer. He turns it once, twice, then slips the cord over Elias's neck. "Back where it belongs," he says simply. Elias closes his fingers around the wood. It is warm from Mateo's skin, warm from the rising sun. He thinks of Liverpool fog, of a belt whistling through cold air, of a boy's hand slipping a promise into his. Something inside his chest unclenches, an iron knot he carried so long he forgot it was there. Behind them, Rena Chin emerges from the galley carrying a wooden trencher. On it rests a loaf of bread, not stolen this time but baked at dawn in the ship's brick oven. Steam curls upward, carrying the scent of yeast and smoke and fresh beginnings. The crew gathers in a loose circle, boots scuffing, laughter low. Mateo tears the loaf in half, hands one piece to Elias. "To debts paid," he says. "To debts forgiven," Elias answers. They eat standing up, crumbs scattering across the deck like tiny stars. A gull wheels overhead, dips and snatches a crust mid-air. Someone begins a shanty, soft, almost shy, about a sailor who saved a boy and a boy who saved the sea. The chorus is picked up by voices that have learned harmony in hurricanes. Far astern, the Royal Navy cutter Hawk is a distant speck, hull canted awkwardly on the reef that should have been Elias's grave. Commander Hawk stands on his quarterdeck, coat torn, pride shattered. He watches the brigantine ride the sunrise westward, and for the first time in years he is unsure whether the law he serves is the same as justice. Elias doesn't look back. His eyes are on the horizon, wide, endless, forgiving. The brigantine, renamed St. Elmo by unanimous vote, carves a white wake through cobalt water. Each crest feels like a heartbeat, each trough like an embrace. Below, the cook, a wiry woman named Amara who once stitched sails in Gibraltar, sets a pot of coffee on the galley stove. The smell drifts up through open hatches, mingling with salt and sun-warmed pine. Children of the crew, 3 rescued from slaver holds, 1 born at sea, chase each other between barrels, their bare feet slapping like drumbeats. Elias descends the companionway, finds Mateo at the chart table. The map is new, ink still drying on ports no English captain has yet named. Mateo taps one with a calloused finger. San Cristobal, he says. They say the hills are gold with coffee and the harbor welcomes strangers. Elias traces the coastline, feels the paper's tooth beneath his fingertip. Sounds like a place a man could learn to breathe again. Mateo grins. We'll drop anchor for a week, maybe 2. Patch the sail, mend the heart. Above deck, the sun climbs higher, turning the metal at Elias's throat into a tiny sun of its own. He steps into the light, closes his eyes, lets warmth soak through skin and bone and memory. When he opens them, the crew has gathered around the mainmast. Rena holds a coil of new rope, white hemp, unfrayed. Time to splice a new lifeline, she says. For whoever comes next. They work in silence, hands moving in practiced rhythm. Over-under pull tight. The rope grows by inches, by stories. When it is finished, Mateo ties the final knot and hangs the St. Elmo medal from the bitter end. It spins slowly, catching light, casting shadows shaped like wings. Elias leans close. Think it'll hold? Mateo's answer is soft. It already has. The brigantine heels gently to a freshening breeze. Somewhere below the children laugh. Somewhere above, gulls will like guardian spirits. Elias fills his lungs with salt and coffee and the sweet, impossible scent of tomorrow. From the bowsprit, the metal glints, a promise kept, a circle closed, a new compass pointing not north or south but onward.